Right, hi guys, it's Dan here, and today I'm going to be talking about The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch, which is a fantasy crime thriller, and it's the first book in his Gentlemen Bastards sequence. So it's set in the fictional city of Camor, which is like a sort of gritty take on medieval Venice, and we follow the Gentlemen Bastards, who are this tight-knit group of con men as they sort of implement their latest plot to appropriate the wealth of one of the ruling families of the city. And things start to go a bit awry as they sort of come into conflict with this mysterious figure known as the Grey King, who has been waging a sort of campaign for control of the city's criminal underworld against the Gentlemen Bastards' patron, Kappa Barsavi, although Kappa Barsavi is kind of unaware of the true extent of the Gentlemen Bastards' criminal activities. And these activities also attract the attention of the Spider, who's another mysterious figure, who is like the head of the Duke of Camor's secret police. And anyway, these sort of narrative threads all get woven together into a pretty spectacular climax, but I'm not going to go into too much detail on that because, you know, spoilers. There's also like a sort of secondary narrative. I wouldn't go so far as to call it a plot, but it's set in a series of interludes which come at the end of most of the chapters, and it's generally set chronologically before the sort of main plot that I've been talking about. And they sort of mostly give us a bit of background and history about Locke Lamora, who's the leader of the Gentlemen Bastards, about his right-hand man, Jean Tannen. I'm going to go for Jean Tannen. They give us a bit of stuff about the city of Camor itself, and a couple of them are just sort of anecdotes that are a bit of a metaphor for what's going on in the main action. So, is it any good? Well, I mean, yeah, I actually thought, I've had a really good run of books recently. A few of them have been rereads, a few of them haven't, and this is continued through this book. This was a really good one. In fact, this, for a debut novel, it is absolutely spectacular stuff, I think, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how his writing progresses through the series, because if this is his first effort, that's pretty mind-blowing. I thought it was a real breath of fresh air. It's really different from a lot of the sort of typical fantasy fare that I've certainly read, and it was a really fun read. But it still had really dark vibes and some sort of really emotional, heartstring plucking moments in it as well. I absolutely I loved the setting. I thought the sort of medieval Venice vibe was really unique, certainly out of anything that I've read. I can't remember another fantasy author basing their setting on medieval Venice, but it was a really great call as far as I'm concerned. Camor, the city in the book, is really well thought out and described in so much detail. It's got its own culture, its own little cultural foibles, and this really seedy criminal underworld, hiding underneath this sort of wealthy aristocratic veneer. I thought the tone of the book, I really liked that. It oscillates between sort of light-hearted humour to sort of dark and violent and sort of seriously scary, but he does it really naturally. It doesn't feel like there's a sort of jarring juxtaposition there. It just all fits seamlessly together. I thought the plot was absolutely brilliant. I loved the plot of this. I've not really seen many examples of this sort of Ocean's 11 type crime heist in the fantasy genre, and it worked really well to my sort of semi-surprise, actually. The con itself that they're sort of the Gentlemen Bastards are trying to commit was really clever, really well thought out, and really well described by Scott Lynch. And the obstacles that he throws in the way of them are just plotted to perfection. and he paces the whole thing just fantastically with this gradual raising of the stakes all the way through the book that leads to a super explosive finish. And the characters are really well done. You know, the gentleman bastards themselves are really likable. Even, you know, they've got a great bond, and I think it's their bond and their camaraderie that makes them really likable, even though they are as crooked as they come, and they are willing to do some really, you know, violent stuff actually to sort of get their way. But you find yourself like really rooting for them to sort of complete their con, as you know, as well as whatever else in the plot. Even though the targets, their targets are these aristocratic couple, the Don and Doña Salvara, and they're really likable characters as well. You know, they actually seem like genuinely sort of nice people. But you're still wanting the gentleman bastards to screw them over because. Well, yeah, just because Scott Lynch makes them seem so likable and fun to read. You know, even when sort of later in the book, Locke and Jean are committing some pretty horrific acts of violence, you're still like, yeah, whatever. They totally deserved that, you know. I don't really know what that says about me, but I'm going to sort of put it down to Scott Lynch's excellent writing rather than my own personal character flaws, I think. You know, I also loved it that so Locke is a priest of this god, and it's the god of necessary pretexts, you know, which is just fantastic for a con man. I thought that was such a good idea, great little piece of writing, world building, whatever. Yeah, that made me chuckle. I mean, yeah, basically, you know, everything about this book was just sort of original and stylish and smart and really fun to read. And I would definitely recommend this to anyone who likes fantasy. I mean, even if you're not into fantasy, if you just like, you know, a really fun book with some good humour, some great characters, a really clever plot, then you absolutely read this. Yeah. The Lives of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. Can't wait to get onto the next one in the series. It's sitting on my bookshelf, and that is definitely going to be on my TBR for next month. So yeah, that's that. Hope you enjoyed, and I hope you enjoy this when you read it, because you should. Ta-ra.